question: why would God's number one angel decide to turn traitor, knowing he could never defeat his all-powerful Creator? It's a mystery that Erwin Lutzer dares to probe, and a mystery that goes a long way toward explaining all the evil around us these days. For a look back, and I mean way back, stay with us. From Chicago's Moody Church, this is Running to Win with Dr. Erwin Lutzer, whose clear teaching helps us make it across the finish line. Erwin Lutzer is in a series called What is God Up To?, which asks some hard questions. As we'll see today, many of our struggles have roots in a greater struggle, that between God and his greatest angelic creation, Lucifer.
Now my topic today is Lucifer's greatest blunder. And I was in a store yesterday, a clothing store, and a man came and to pick up some clothes, and he was asked his name, and he said, "It is Mr. Lutz, L-U-T-Z. I pointed out that my name was a little longer than his, but we must be related somewhere along the line, and I simply mention that so that once again you keep Lucifer distinct from Lutzer. In the beginning, as we know, there was God, as we learned last week. And if you did not get last week's message, be sure to get it on tape if you weren't here. And we talked about God being alone and the greatness of God, his immensity, his incredible immensity. Did you notice the article in the Trib this past week? Astronomers discover the largest galaxy ever. It said that they discovered a galaxy 60 times the size of the Milky Way. It embraces more than 100 trillion stars. Did you know it's possible to have a star named after you? I think we could make money that way. Just tell people we'll name a star after you. Just pay us $100. But notice this. You know that light travels at 186,000 miles a second. In a year, it travels roughly 6 trillion miles. Now think about that. And this galaxy is 6 million light years in diameter. So if you want to find out how far it is in diameter, what you do is you take 6 trillion and you multiply it by 6 million. I didn't, because I know I probably would make a mistake. And when it comes to arithmetic, I've always said, as long as I'm right 90% of the time, who cares about the other 5%? It's not my great strength. But I want you to notice that the scientists say this is an organized mass of light and energy. And here's the good news, folks. God is bigger than this galaxy. It is unthinkable that he would create galaxies and universes that are greater than he is. They say that the universe is infinite. Perhaps that's possible. If the universe is infinite, God is beyond the infinite. You know what I think? I don't think he's worried about the budget deficit in Washington. I really don't think that's any big deal to God. He's not even worried about the budget deficit at Moody Church. You know, that's no big deal to him either. He's interested in it, but all of these things that concern us are really of no great moment to our almighty sovereign God. And when he decided to create, he already knew that he would be putting into motion a series of events, a series of dominoes that would produce eventually the Holocaust, that would cause child abuse and all of the injustices that plague the world. So what is it that God is up to? What is he doing that he would think would justify a planet with this incredible amount of hurt throughout all the years of war, misunderstanding, hatred, and grief? You know, of course, that God's first agenda was to create spirit beings. We call them angels. They are personal. They are personal because they have intelligence. They have sensibility. They have will. They could choose against God. They are powerful, able to travel from one end of this planet to another very, very quickly. In fact, that's also true of demons, fallen angels. Did you know that there's a university in Texas where there is a man who concentrates and meditates at a certain time, that a guru in India also concentrates and meditates, and they send messages back and forth, and they think it's the power of the mind. Well, if this is happening, I want you to know that it is not the powerful minds that we have. It is because there are evil spirits in the world that can travel that quickly from one continent to another and bring messages to people who are into the occult. We find also that when God decided to create angels, they were plentiful. There are millions of them, tens of millions. Possibly there is one for every one of the stars that we have talked about, the hundreds of trillions of stars. And the greatest of all of these beings that God created evidently was Lucifer. And we'd like to look at his career as it is outlined for us in the 28th chapter of the book of Ezekiel. Ezekiel chapter 28, the prophet of the Old Testament, was speaking about the king of Tyre, and suddenly he ends up speaking about a spirit being that is awesome and beautiful. Stage 1 in his career is his creation. Ezekiel 28. I want you to notice his appearance, first of all, is given. Verse 11, and the word of the Lord came to me, saying, Son of man, take up a lamentation over the king of Tyre, and say to him, Thus says the Lord. You say, well, Pastor Lutzer, this is a reference to the king of Tyre, not to Lucifer. But if you read it, you soon find out that there's no way that this can refer simply to a king. Behind the king of Tyre is Satan. And that's why the writer begins to say things that could never possibly be true of any man. And that's why commentators and theologians throughout the centuries have said that this is a reference not to a man, but ultimately to Lucifer. Notice his appearance. You had the seal of perfection, this is the middle of verse 12, full of wisdom and perfect in beauty. Think about that. You see, God could never create a being that was as beautiful as God himself is. Any being that he creates has to be a lesser being.